What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode on this YouTube channel. So, I've been studying in Germany now for almost a full year and have completed 2 semesters so far. And let's just say that it's been full of ups and downs. But there are some questions that I keep getting asked by friends and family members, some of whom are actually interested in pursuing a master's program. So I thought it would be really interesting if I could sit down and make a video generally reflecting on the past 1 year that I've had so far and answer the 2 questions that I keep getting asked the most. The first one being, what is the best country to go and do a master's program? And also, is Germany a good country to come and do a master's program in? Sometimes I find it very difficult to answer these 2 particular questions because it all comes down to personal preference, or maybe in some cases, someone's personal situation, simply because perspectives vary from person to person. The way I look at a particular situation isn't the same way someone else might. But nonetheless, in this particular video, I'm just going to give my own opinion. And hopefully, this information will help you make a better decision as you choose the location of your future master's program. Let's get started. Answering the first question of the best country to do your master's program in, as I have said previously, is very subjective and sometimes very complicated. I personally think that it shouldn't be about the country that you're going to do your program in, but more about the master's program itself. Before you actually decide to undertake any master's program, you should actually look at how the course generally is, how it is structured, what units are taught, who are the professors. That way you have a better idea of what exactly you are getting yourself into. I think it's much better if you think more about the quality of education rather than the actual country the program is located in. Well, lucky for you, I've already made a video exactly on this particular topic, and I'll link it in the description below. It's a video where I basically talk about the 9 key things that you need to consider before selecting a master's program. So I highly advise you that after you are done watching this particular video, that you go and watch the other video, because there are so many factors that you need to think about when choosing a master's program, and the actual physical location of the master's program is just one of those 9. Long story short, it's not about where you do your master's program, it's about the quality of education that you are going to get. The second most asked question that I keep getting is whether Germany is a good option to consider when choosing where to do your master's program. And the short answer is yes. Yes, it is. But there are some things which are very important that you should be aware of before you decide to come here. Germany is a very good option to consider when you're thinking of pursuing a master's program because 1, you get access to high quality education, but at an affordable price. Quick disclaimer here before you get too excited. Affordable is in comparison to other nations such as the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia. In those countries that I've mentioned, you pay significantly way more in order to do your master's program. So compared to those nations, it is affordable, but you still have to have quite a bit of money in order to come and study here in Germany. Mainly because in Germany, a lot of public universities are tuition free. Huh? Yep, you heard me. Tuition free. Incredible, right? So you only pay a small semester fee and your own monthly expenses such as food and rent. The second benefit is the quality of life. Personally, I believe that Germany offers a very high quality of life when compared to most other parts of the world since it's generally a very advanced nation. You have access to high quality public transport systems, good and affordable healthcare, and one major thing that I have come to appreciate from living here is the consumer protection laws in this country. Things just function better here compared to other parts of the world. Point number 3. I think we're in point number 3. Anyway, Germany is also centrally located in Europe. So if you want to travel, well, you can to most parts of Europe actually. Well, that is if you can afford to.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
Another good reason for you to come and study here is also the possibility of gaining employment once you have completed your master's program. Every couple of weeks, headlines from many German news outlets report on how there are shortages of skilled labor in many sectors such as healthcare, engineering, and so on. So there is the possibility of getting a job once you graduate from your master's program, but there's one little condition that you have to fulfill.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Ja, ich spreche Deutsch sehr gut. Ich habe Deutsch in der Schule gelernt. Ja.
Well, it's not little. It's actually a big thing, and that's the German language. You need to be very fluent in it, especially in some sectors such as healthcare. But we're going to talk more about that later in this episode. So, if you're not yet convinced that Germany is actually a good place to come and study, there's also the fact that it is generally very safe and very secure. Well, let me not say the whole of Germany. Let me talk about Munich. Munich is generally very safe and very secure. In short, there are so many good things that this country has to offer you as a master's student. But there are some things I wish I knew before I started my current master's program. Some of these things will be related to my particular program, and some of these will be generally about Germany as a country. The first thing is about the level of bureaucracy in this country. Now, I'm all for following rules and regulations and ensuring that standards are met since I am an engineer by profession. But oh my goodness, here it's to another level. It makes doing simple tasks way more difficult than it needs to be. Mainly because everything has a process and all the rules in the process must be followed. And by all, I literally mean it. All the rules must be followed. Let me give an example of my experience opening a bank account in Germany and compare it to my home country so that you understand how simple activities can become so stressful.
Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready.
In Kenya, if I want to open a new bank account, all I have to do is just carry the relevant documents that I need and walk into the nearest branch of the particular bank that I want to open an account in. Then hand in the required documents, fill in a few forms, and on that same day, the account will be activated. And even some banks can offer you a debit card almost immediately after, or maybe in 2 days' time. A pretty straightforward process, if you ask me. In Germany, once you have decided which institution that you want to bank with, by the way, which is a pain in the ass on its own since different banks have different rules that you need to be aware of. You have to first apply online through a particular link or portal on the bank's website, and from there you give all your details. That involves filling in all the required forms and submitting scanned digital copies of your documents and then sending them. A few days later, the bank reaches out via email and informs you whether 1. They accept your application, or they require more documentation from you, or the third option, they outrightly reject your application. That was step number 1. If they accept your application the first time, they will need you to send physical copies of the documents that you had previously scanned and sent to them, which doesn't make sense to me. So you either mail the documents via post, which takes an extra day or two to reach the bank, or you can do what I did and physically walk to a branch and submit the documents to the branch manager. So far, this process can take anywhere between 5 to 7 weekdays, depending on how quick you are to initially fill, scan, and send the forms virtually, then physically sending them after getting the acceptance notification from your bank. About 2 weeks later, you start receiving physical letters from the bank. The first one will basically acknowledge that you're officially an account holder. About 3 to 4 days later, the second letter will contain your Giro card. If I've completely butchered that name, well, I apologize. 4 days after that, you'll get a third letter, which basically will give you a PIN that you will use to access the online banking app. But it doesn't end there. 3 days after that, you will receive the fourth letter, which will contain the PIN that you will use to access the phone app.
How long is this going to take?
And finally, about 2 days later, the fifth letter will come containing the PIN to your Giro card. So as you can see, simply opening a bank account, getting access to the phone app, online banking, and getting a card and its PIN can easily take you almost a full month.
What? What the fuck?
Honestly, up to today, I don't know if it's because of the bank that I chose, but that was literally my experience. You can imagine the stress of being a couple of weeks in a new country and having to go through all of these hoops just to access your money, and you still have to pay bills. It was a really tough time for me personally. But let me know your experience. Maybe yours was better. You can do so in the comment section down below. And it's not just banking. Activities here are just extremely slow because there is a process, and these processes have rules that have to be followed, which technically is not a bad thing, but sometimes it can be quite frustrating, especially when you're used to getting things done quickly. The second issue I wish I was aware before I came here was the importance of the German language.
In Deutschland wird Deutsch gesprochen. Ganz klar. Ganz einfache Sache.
Let me be honest, before I came here, I was actually warned about it, but I didn't really think I would struggle as much since I'm coming to Munich and it's a big city. But it still remains a fact. Not knowing German in Germany puts you at a serious disadvantage, especially when you're looking for employment, even in some cases for part-time jobs. I've personally experienced this where the jobs that you qualify for are actually available, but they require you to have German proficiency up to a certain level. So you end up missing out on a lot of employment opportunities. And it's not just about employment. Generally, life becomes so much harder if you don't know the language. Here's a good example that I experienced this past semester where not knowing the language basically put me at a disadvantage.
Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready.
Here's what happened. I needed to print a school assignment on an A3 paper, but the print shop that I walked into on this particular day was being served by an old man, I would say probably past the age of 60. I walked up to him and asked him if he spoke English, but I asked him in German, so I was like, "Sprechen Sie English?" And he was like, "Nein," which means no. So before we continue, a bit of context. The reason why I asked him if he knew English was basically so that I can explain to him exactly what I needed, because this was a school assignment which had specific printing instructions and I didn't want to mess anything up with my poor German. Luckily, I had a friend with me in the shop who is more fluent, and he explained what I needed and I was able to get service. Whenever you see people online saying that you can come to Germany without really knowing the language and learn later, my friend, the fire that is waiting for you on this side, you have no idea. So my advice is, if you're planning to come to Germany, please learn the language at least to a B1 level. It will be of great help. I think we're on point number 3 on our list, but anyway, it's okay. But this particular point is school related and it's on the topic of exams. And again, I will make a comparison to my home country because those are the two countries that I have basically studied in. Back home in Kenya, exams are structured in a 70-30 style. Bear with me, I'll explain. 30% is a CAT that is done in between the semester, and then the remaining 70% is the main assessment done at the end of the semester. In Germany, or should I say at TUM specifically, master's level, there is only one exam that is done at the end of semester that basically determines whether you pass or fail the unit. So there's a lot of pressure and stress during exam period as you only have one chance to pass, or otherwise all the work and effort that you've put during the semester won't count for anything. Also, something that really annoys me, as if the fact that doing one main exam doesn't make things hard enough, at two masters level, there is the 1 mark, 1 minute rule. So if you're doing a 3-credit program, that means the final exam will be 60 marks and that paper should be done in 60 minutes. So effectively 1 mark per minute. Or in some cases where it's a 6-credit program, the exam will be done in 2 hours or 120 minutes. So effectively still maintaining the 1 mark, 1 minute rule. It makes it so difficult because you don't have time to think in the exam room and the examiners just expect you to write continuously from start to finish. It's absolutely crazy if you ask me. So basically, it means that if you read a question during an exam and you stop and try to think and recall maybe something you had read in the notes longer than the 1 mark 1 minute rule, it means that you're eating into time that you could use to answer another question that probably earns you more marks. I actually wasn't aware of this before I chose to study here, but to be fair, you kind of get used to it. But for sure, your first semester exams will be a nightmare because everything is so new and everything happens so far. But we all got through it in the end. We thank God. The fourth thing I wish I knew before I came here was the extremely high cost of living in Munich. Again, this is one of those points where I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, but I really didn't fully understand what I was getting myself into, if you know what I mean. Life in Germany is generally so much more expensive, particularly if you come from a country that is not as developed as Germany is. Especially your first 6 months, you will feel as if you don't want to buy anything because it seems too expensive. I particularly had this struggle, and I'm sure every international student has gone through this before, where you walk into a store and you look at the price tag of an item that you are intending to buy, and then you start converting the amount into your local currency back home, and then you realize it's probably 2 or 3 times as expensive as it is back home. Then all of a sudden you start questioning whether you really need that product or not. The only solution to this particular problem is that as soon as you settle down and feel comfortable enough in the city that you are in, just start looking for a part-time job, because even if the cost of living in Europe is high, generally in Europe and particularly in Germany, salaries also tend to be high. So yeah, I think we've come to the end of today's video, and if you've made it this far, first of all, thank you so much. I really don't take it for granted that you have spent your time watching this video and genuinely do appreciate it. And if you like the content, let me know by leaving a like and subscribing. And if you have any questions or any comments, write them in the comment section down below. And I'll just finish by saying, it's not necessarily about where you do your master's program, The more important issue is the quality of the master's program. And finally, Germany is a very good place to come and study, but please do your own research. I've just given you a few points that I personally have experienced, but I've only been here for 1 year. There is so much more I am yet to experience. So yeah, see you in next week's video. Bye bye. So I needed to print a school assignment on a... why is this so hard?